Limited.
We said we'd never break the 3-second rule. Never do that. And never become a minivan mom.
Hey, Chris.
As parents, we say never a lot, but never happens. So when you say you'd never leave your child in a hot car, know it can happen. Before you leave the car, always stop, look, lock.
I'm Jenna Enoch. Here's your Spectrum News in 90. We're learning some new details in the apparent assassination attempt on Donald Trump. Authorities confirming the suspect, Ryan Ruth, camped outside the West Palm Beach, Florida golf course with food and a rifle for nearly 12 hours, waiting for the former president. A Secret Service agent opened fire and thwarted the potential attack. Investigators also saying Ruth never had a clear line of sight on Trump and never fired his weapon. Ruth appeared in federal court yesterday to face firearm charges. The local sheriff saying Trump's Mar-a-Lago residence is at the highest security level it could ever be. Heavy winds and rains from a storm in the Atlantic hitting parts of the southeastern U.S. coast. The storm flooded several areas of Carolina Beach, North Carolina, and brought widespread wind gusts over 40 miles per hour. A tropical storm warning was in effect for parts of the coasts of North and South Carolina for about 24 hours before it was canceled yesterday afternoon. Performer and music producer Sean Diddy Combs was arrested last night in New York. He was indicted by a federal grand jury. The hip-hop mogul has faced a stream of allegations by women accusing him of sexual assault. The indictment is sealed, but details of the charges are expected to be released this morning. Those are your headlines. Now, here's your weather on the ones.
Good Tuesday morning, everybody. I'm meteorologist Mel Carpenter. We've been enjoying a nice stretch of cooler weather across the West Coast from Seattle all the way down to Los Angeles. Temperatures are going to continue to run to 10 to 15 degrees below the average. Meanwhile, across Texas, we're heating up big time back into the low 90s, upper 90s in southern Texas, and we're climbing into the middle and upper 80s across the Great Lakes region from Minneapolis to Chicago. But certainly was an unsettled day with this non-tropical low bringing heavy rainfall and some serious flooding across southeastern North Carolina. We'll look at some of those impressive rainfall totals coming up in 10 minutes.
I'm Jenna Enoch. Thank you for joining us on Spectrum News. This morning, we're hearing from former President Donald Trump. He's recalling the moment he heard gunshots while playing golf at his course in West Palm Beach, Florida on Sunday. He spoke last night during an X Spaces conversation.
A Secret Service agent had seen a barrel of a AK-47, which is a very powerful rifle. And he started shooting at the barrel, started shooting. It was in the bushes. Wow. Could only see the barrel. How good is that, right?
This morning, authorities in West Palm Beach, Florida are still working to determine a motive. Investigators say the suspect, Ryan Ruth, was plotting to shoot the former president on Sunday and waited near the golf course for 12 hours. It's the second assassination attempt on the former president in just over 2 months. The local sheriff saying Trump's Mar-a-Lago residence is at the highest security level it could ever be. Ruth is facing federal firearm charges. Spectrum's Jeff Allen joins us from West Palm Beach, Florida this morning, where, Jeff, law enforcement there say that the suspect in this was scoping out the area for several hours.
Yeah, we're just outside of the Trump International Golf Club where the former president was golfing on Sunday when all of this happened. And investigators say cell phone data they've been able to gather actually shows that the suspect, Ryan Ruth, was in this vicinity, in this area, and scoping out this area around the golf club long before those Secret Service agents actually spotted him.
Driver! Stop. Walk straight back!
Newly released police body camera video there shows Ruth's arrest. Deputies able to catch up with him on I-95 just about 45 minutes after all that happened north of here. Now, that was after Secret Service agents, of course, first spotted a rifle at the fence line on the edge of the golf club property just a few hundred yards away from where the former president was golfing. They fired at Ralph at one point. Now, Ralph was not hit, and we learned on Monday that he never actually had a direct line of fire to the former president or was able to get off any of his own rounds of gunfire. Now, investigators were able to triangulate Ralph's cell phone location, and they say he had been hanging out in this vicinity for nearly 12 hours before all that. During a cryptocurrency event on social media Monday night, former President Trump talked about the entire incident.
All of a sudden, we heard shots being fired in the air, and I guess probably 4 or 5. And it sounded like bullets, but what do I know about that? But Secret Service knew immediately it was bullets. And they grabbed me, and amazingly, a civilian in that area saw something, and it looked very suspicious. And in the car, drove their car to the back of his truck of some kind, and took pictures of the license plate, gave them to the sheriff's office.
Now, the acting head of the Secret Service, Ronald Rowe, came here to the golf course on Monday, met with the former president as well as investigators, and he said when the president was golfing on Sunday, the Secret Service was implementing security for what's known as off-the-book movement, something he says that's not on his schedule and should be relatively unknown to the general public because it's not something that was set and expected to happen. Now, Ryan Ralph, he was in federal court on Monday. He's already charged with 2 gun charges and could face up to a combined 20 years in prison if convicted on those. He's due back in federal court next week. That's the latest from Palm Beach County. Jeff Allen. Jenna, back to you.
Jeff, thanks so much. The parent company of Facebook announcing it has banned Russia media outlet RT and other Kremlin-controlled networks. Meta alleging the outlets have engaged in foreign interference activity. Earlier this month, the Department of Justice announced charges against 2 employees from RT for funneling $10 million into a U.S. company to amplify content aligning with Russian interests. Well, U.S. officials say the influence campaign was aimed at Americans ahead of November's election. RT has not commented yet to the Meta news, but after the Justice Department announcement, the company responded with mocking statements and didn't address the allegations. Developing now, performer and music producer Sean Diddy Combs is in custody. He was indicted by a federal grand jury in New York. Combs was arrested at a hotel in Manhattan last night. Well, the hip-hop mogul has faced a stream of allegations by women accusing him of sexual assault. The indictment is sealed, but details of the charges are expected to be released this morning. His attorney says Combs is cooperating with the investigation. Historic floods hitting parts of the North Carolina coast. A tropical storm system dumped enormous amounts of rain in just hours yesterday. Spectrum meteorologist Ramel Carpenter joins us now. And Ramel, how much rain did some areas see?
Yeah, some areas saw well over 1.5 feet of rain, especially in southeastern North Carolina. Not going to be expecting those rainfall totals to happen again as the system is much weaker. We are seeing dry air starting to help out with that, which should limit rainfall totals as the system works its way into the mid-Atlantic. But here are some of the rainfall totals that we had since Monday after midnight. 18 inches in Carolina Beach, 12 inches over a foot in Southport. All these locations are in southeastern North Carolina, and it definitely was an unsettled day. Flooded roadways, water rescues were all reported for that matter as well. And this system did not have a name. Just shows you that you don't always need a named storm to get some serious impacts. And we had some strong winds on top of the gusty, on top of the rainfall as well. 67 miles per hour in Wrightsville Beach, 59 in the Wilmington area, and Southport also had wind gusts well over 55 miles per hour.
Ramel, thanks. With less than 50 days to go before the general election, where do things stand? We'll discuss coming up in our Political Buzz.
Here's the deal. People need a place to explore national issues that have an impact on their community. To understand those issues better, we're bringing together our team of local political journalists from across the country to break down what's happening. So join us every week to catch up on the key stories making a big difference across the nation and in your local community.
Watch The Big Deal with Errol Lewis Friday nights at 9 Eastern, 8 Central on Spectrum News Plus. Available on all of your favorite devices exclusively on Spectrum.
What if you never had to worry about what you could do? Because you could do anything. Anywhere could be the center of everywhere. And boundaries only existed to be pushed. So the only limit you faced was how big you could dream. What would you do then? Some pretty cool stuff, I bet. Yeah, that'd be some life. That'd be life unlimited.
You're not gonna get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff.
Mama!
Like making sure your kids are in the right seat for their age and size. Get it right at nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat.
Even the mighty might not see it coming. It's prediabetes, and it captures 1 in 3 adults. But you can escape. Take the 1-minute prediabetes risk test to know where you stand and prevent or delay type 2 diabetes. Be your own hero on smartphones everywhere at doihaveprediabetes.org.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm meteorologist Ramel Carpenter with you on this Tuesday morning. We were tracking this area of low pressure that came ashore across the Carolinas yesterday, and it brought some serious impacts despite not receiving a name. This was being monitored by the National Hurricane Center, potential tropical cyclone 8. Center circulation didn't get quite organized enough to get the tropical storm classification, but you don't always need a named storm to bring some serious impacts, which is what we saw, especially in southeastern North Carolina. Here's a look at some of the local storm reports that we had across this part of the state. Several water rescues were reported, washed out roads, and even some strong winds led to some trees down onto some homes. Isolated power outages were reported as well in the southeastern part of the state, and some of those reports stretch all the way up towards the Fayetteville region and even into the Crystal Coast for that matter as well. Take a look at this image in Carolina Beach sent to us by Tony. You can see how quickly that water was rising into the low levels of the homes in some of the smallest beach towns across North Carolina. So we had those reports yesterday, and of course you could always remember, you can always share your weather photos with us as long as you're in a safe place with the Spectrum News app. And here are those rainfall totals. Carolina Beach was the hot spot yesterday. 18 inches of rainfall fell since midnight yesterday. And some of those rainfall totals well over a foot from Bald Head Island to Southport and the southeastern portions of North Carolina. And I mentioned this storm did not have a name, but it was acting like it with some strong wind gusts reported from Wrightsville Beach at 67 miles per hour, the strongest wind gusts reported. And down towards Wilmington, we had some winds reported well over 59 miles per hour. So it was quite windy along with that wet weather. Thankfully, the weather pattern starts to improve as we get into the next couple of days. This is the Raleigh-Durham area where temperatures are going to be pretty much in the low 80s. Keeping a small chance for some isolated showers and thunderstorms through the middle of the week, but should dry out completely as we head into this weekend. Now, that same storm system that brought the significant rainfall to the Carolinas working its way into the mid-Atlantic, where we have flash flood watches in effect across southeastern Virginia. We'll have a look at some of those rainfall totals we can expect and when the system gets out of here, coming up in 10 minutes on your Weather on the Ones.
If you're just joining us or you're heading out the door, here's a look at what you need to know. New details in the apparent assassination attempt on Donald Trump. Authorities say the suspect, Ryan Ruth, waited outside the West Palm Beach golf course for 12 hours. A Secret Service agent opened fire and stopped the potential attack. Investigators say Ruth never had a clear line of sight on Trump and never fired his weapon. A severe storm taking aim at parts of the southeastern U.S. coast. The historic rain rainfall flooded several parts of Carolina Beach and North Carolina. Officials say life-threatening flash flooding is ongoing. Hip-hop mogul Sean Diddy Combs arrested last night in New York after being indicted by a federal grand jury. Combs has faced many allegations of sexual assault. Details of his charges are expected to be released this morning. And that's what you need to know this morning. It's time now for our political buzz. Political director Bob Hart joins us now. Good morning, Bob. Well, former President Donald Trump is back on the campaign trail today, despite another apparent assassination attempt. So how are security concerns being addressed?
I mean, Jenna, that's a really good question. You would think that after the assassination attempt in July that things would be really locked down around the former president, but that clearly wasn't the case. You had allegedly a would-be assassin in the bushes almost for 12 hours outside the golf course while Trump was about to play. So I think Trump's got to be a little worried, looking behind his back, and I think it was another embarrassing incident for the Secret Service.
And Bob, now we're less than 50 days away from the general election. I know you are busy. Where do things stand overall as you kind of look at the big picture?
So I saw a morning consult poll this morning that showed Harris up over Trump by about more than 5 points. The question I have, though, and I think we have to remind everyone, is that this is not a national election per se. It's 50 elections in 50 states. So we really have to be focusing on about 7 swing states. I'm looking really carefully at Pennsylvania, where you're seeing Harris, according to polls, have a narrow lead over Trump. That's really where you got to be focusing state to state. So my gut is that Harris has a small lead, but it is not insurmountable at all. And I think this is going to be one of those presidential races where it may take several days after the election to sort out who the winner and losers are.
And Bob, speaking of Kamala Harris trying to get the endorsement of the Teamsters Union, its president spoke at the Republican National Convention in July. How important is this endorsement for Trump or Harris?
Well, the Teamsters are obviously very powerful union. It was really unprecedented to have a union leader speak at both of the conventions. My feeling is that even if Harris were to get the actual leadership endorsement, rank and file would probably be going toward Trump. That's what you see, especially it's a predominantly male union. Most of them don't have college degrees. These are often Trump voters. So that's where I think the lay of the land would be. Even if Harris were to get the seal of approval from Teamster leadership, that doesn't necessarily translate in a lot of votes. It's good PR, but it isn't necessarily great at the polling places.
Bob Hart, always a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jenna.
Today is National Voter Registration Day, and the cast of Hamilton is encouraging Americans to register to vote in its own unique way.
Next TM or text 3 friends to check for sure they are registered in the state or city they live now. Even better, you can show them how to register.
Make a healthier habit when you fill out a ballot.
In a post on X, the Hamilton cast singing a song titled Election 2024. The song was recorded with iconic Hamilton melodies while urging citizens to check their voting status. The video was made in partnership with When We All Vote and Vote Riders. No candidate was favored in the post, but called for voters to participate this election season. Just ahead on Spectrum News, the power of equine therapy. How one Good morning, I'm Jenna Enoch. This is a breaking news report on Spectrum News. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and law enforcement officials are in Palm Beach County. The sheriff is planning to talk, as well as the attorney general, speaking about the apparent assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump. We're going to go ahead and listen in now.
Florida has jurisdiction over the most serious, straightforward offense, which is attempted murder. I've directed state agencies to move expeditiously and to provide full transparency to the public. In my judgment, it's not in the best interest of our state or our nation to have the same federal agencies that are seeking to prosecute Donald Trump leading this investigation, especially when the most serious, straightforward offense constitutes a violation of state law, but not federal law. In addition to holding the suspect accountable, the public deserves to know the truth about how this assassination came to be. And I've directed all state agencies to work expeditiously to be able to uncover the truth in addition to holding this suspect accountable. We are going to hear from some folks that will be involved in this, starting with our Attorney General, Ashley Moody.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you for all who are joining us today. I'm Ashley Moody. I'm the Attorney General of the great state of Florida. Really proud, as always, to stand with a leader like Governor DeSantis, who always appears to meet the moment, whatever that may be, whatever challenge may be upon us. And he's certainly not one to sit on his hands. And today is another demonstration of that incredible leadership characteristic. You know, I think America right now is, and Florida citizens are very hungry for leadership. This is unprecedented to have this much focus on a presidential nominee with the type of rhetoric and threats coming out of the mouths of so many people. And I will just say it was really disappointing to hear the president say that President Trump should be put in a bullseye just days before we saw the first assassination attempt, and then weeks later at the DNC say that that threat was still very much alive. And now, again, in under 30 days, another assassination attempt. And so what I think people are hungry for is leadership. They don't want somebody to come out and say, Secret Service needs to tell us what they need and Congress should do something about it. It may very well be that more resources need to be dedicated to Secret Service. But leadership is about strategy. It's about implementing a plan. It's about determining where your gaps are, your deficiencies, and filling those in. I mean, look no further than our governor when we were hit by a major catastrophe like Ian, a hurricane, and he didn't say, somebody give them money, and he didn't say, you do this. He built a bridge in 3 days. He got it done. I told him that's what he should have ran on when he ran for re-election. That was it. The motto should have been a bridge in 3 days. And so what we need is the president to acknowledge that these agencies, not just Secret Service, but DHS, in which it is housed, are under his purview. That is what the people elected him to be. Our commander-in-chief and the head of an executive branch which is made up of agencies. And that means when something happens and goes wrong, you are in the details and you are formulating a plan, and it may not always be just about money. It's about leadership. And right now, the American people need to know we're on this. Sometimes states have the ability and the jurisdiction to bring charges and go after maximum penalties that maybe the federal government does not. And that doesn't mean it's a turf war. Somebody asked me about that before. It is very common for state investigators, state prosecutors to work with our federal prosecutors and federal agents on dual tracks with different purposes. And we may have different charges here, and that's why with Governor DeSantis' leadership, I am proud that Florida Department of Law Enforcement and the Florida Highway Patrol will be looking into and investigating what happened when something went terribly wrong, when someone was allowed to remain on the periphery of a golf course in a tree line for 12 hours and get within 500 feet of the President of the United States. We also need trust and transparency. And that's why I'm very proud of the state of Florida for stepping up and this governor for stepping up and delivering that to Floridians and the American people. It is awkward, to say the least, to have a prosecutorial agency and an investigatory agency that is bringing charges and seeking to put the victim away for life being the same agency and prosecutors that are going after the would-be assassin. And so we're happy to make sure that the American people and Floridians feel confident that we're protecting one of our own, that we're investigating this to leave no stone unturned, and that is to protect the life of the once and potentially future President of the United States, Donald Trump. So thank you, Governor DeSantis, for trusting us and our agencies with this important work.
Great. Okay, Mark Glass, FDLE.
Good morning. I'm Mark Glass, the Commissioner for the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. And first, I just want to say, I want to thank Governor DeSantis for his steadfast leadership of this great state. And I also want you to know that within just hours after this heinous attempt on former President Donald Trump, Governor DeSantis took action and directed state law enforcement to find the truth, to hunt for the truth. And that's what we're doing. We're hunting. Florida is a law and order state, and we will not sit idly by while anybody stonewalls information sharing amongst our law enforcement entities. We know that if we want answers, we got to go get them. And our proud law enforcement officers and deputies are out there doing that, and we are happy to do that for this great state. Additionally, Florida law enforcement is very fortunate to have Attorney General Moody and her prosecutors to help us with finding that truth. And her office of statewide prosecution is an essential partner in our quest for justice. Let me be clear on this one. Acts of domestic terrorism, such as attempted assassinations, are unacceptable, and we will not stand for that in Florida. The men and women of Florida law enforcement agencies throughout our great state are working day and night tirelessly to uncover and fight for the truth. The people of Florida deserve answers, and Governor, we will deliver those answers to you. Thank you.
Okay, Palm Beach County's own Commissioner of the Department of Highway Safety Motor Vehicles, Director Dave Kerner.
Thank you, Governor, and it is good to be back in Palm Beach County. Unfortunate circumstances. My name is Dave Kerner, and my capacity as Executive Director, I have operational control of the Florida Highway Patrol, and we take this assignment, Governor, with deep gratitude to be part of this important investigation. As an agency, we're cognizant of the gravity of the now 2 attempts on the life of a former United States President and current nominee for President of the United States of America. Regarding the direction by Governor DeSantis that state troopers participate in the state-level criminal investigation into this assassination attempt, there are fundamental questions that must be answered and acted upon. There is at least one person, perhaps more, that needs to be held accountable to the fullest extent of the law. The experience of the Florida Highway Patrol and their Bureau of Criminal Investigations and Intelligence accepts this mission with humility and a very specific promise. That promise recognizes that effective law enforcement is based upon the foundation of interagency and intergovernmental cooperation in the investigation. We go into this investigation with our partners in FDLE and the Sheriff of Palm Beach County and Martin County, candidly, with the promise of the exchange of information on both sides. We make that commitment. However, Governor, our promise is that if the higher-ups in the federal government refuse to provide the light of transparency, then we will fight in the shade. The people of Florida and the United States have a right to be served by a government of candor, honesty, and action. And I'm confident that we will bring you and the people of Florida those answers, no matter the manner in which we uncover them. We will do everything that we can. I know Commissioner Glass and his special agents and our troopers are fully prepared for this mission. Law and order is not merely a concept, it is a way of life that requires constant effort and attention, and our governor has never wavered from that commitment. To the sheriffs of Palm Beach County, Sheriff Bradshaw and Sheriff Snyder of Martin County, we look forward to working in this investigation in a cooperative manner. Thank you very much, Governor.
Okay. We'll now hear from Palm Beach County Sheriff Rick Bradshaw.
Thank you, Governor. The governor is entirely correct. We need to prosecute this guy to the fullest extent. I think that's the prosecutor side of you coming out. But we also need to make sure that all of the details that went into planning this were sufficient. And if they weren't, adjust. That's how you get better at what you do. You have to critique and have after-action reports. We work great with FDLE. I know the commissioner. My commitment to him and the governor is to provide all the resources and information that he needs to do his investigation and get this prosecution where it needs to be. And my commitment to the Secret Service, I met with the director yesterday, and my commitment to them was, when you decide the level of security that you need, I will provide all the resources necessary to make that happen. Right now at Mar-a-Lago, it's the highest level that it can be. It's the same level as when he was the president. And I can almost assure you that when he travels or if he goes to play golf again, things will probably change. But my commitment to him is, and I talked to him on the phone about this, I will make sure that my resources are dedicated to the Secret Service to keep him safe. But thank you, Governor, for doing this. I think it's going to be great information. And, you know, let's prosecute this guy. I know General Moody will. Let's prosecute this guy and put him away so he doesn't get back out. Thank you.
Out here live. You've been watching a news conference on the apparent assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump. As you saw there, members of law enforcement stood on the podium, including the Attorney General, also the Sheriff of Palm Beach County. They did say they will investigate the attempted assassination of former President Trump at the state level, in addition to the federal investigation that will take place on their level. State investigators also announcing that more than one person will be held accountable for this. Also mentioned the state of security at Mar-a-Lago. So we're going to bring in Spectrum's Jeff Allen in West Palm Beach. Jeff, you have been there for the past 2 days in West Palm Beach, sort of outside the gates of the golf club. What have you seen as this investigation has gone on as far as security there? As we just heard in the press conference, it is at the highest level, as if former President Trump was still president.
Yeah, the sheriff of Palm Beach County reiterating something he first said yesterday, that the security at the former president's residence and resort there at Mar-a-Lago at the highest level it's been. But, you know, of course, we've seen law enforcement at a huge level on the perimeter of the Trump International Golf Course where all of this happened, where this attempted assassination attempt that the FBI says happened on Sunday. We've also, you know, seen several roads in and around this course shut down as this investigation into what happened here moves forward. So obviously law enforcement taking no chances at this point. And then Florida leaders there, you heard the governor, State Attorney General Ashley Moody also talking about how they want to prosecute this case moving forward.
Jeff, important to know we're learning little bits and pieces, right, as the days go on since Sunday. But what more do we know this morning about the suspect?
Well, Ryan Routh, the suspect that is in custody for this, he was in federal court facing a couple of gun charges. It's unclear where he got that gun. He has a criminal past in North Carolina, but he had that gun that they found here, and he's accused of removing the serial number from one of those guns, and he's also charged with possession of a gun by a convicted felon. We know he lived in Hawaii, so he somehow traveled here. We don't know exactly when at this point, made his way here, and was actually cell phone data investigators say show he was actually scoping out this area for nearly 12 hours before those Secret Service agents first spotted him along that fence line. And then all of this, of course, went down with them firing shots towards him. You know, we also know that he was a supporter of Ukraine in that ongoing war with Russia and has been a critic of the former president in the past.
And Jeff, just one more question here. We did hear from former President Trump last night during a conversation on X Spaces, reacting for the first time to what happened on Sunday. He did alert everyone that he was okay right after it happened. But what did he say last night?
Yeah, we heard during that, it was an online social media space about cryptocurrency. He described in detail how all of this went down, what it was like for him when those Secret Service agents spotted that gun poking through the fence line. He says they quickly got him off the course. He praised the Secret Service agents as well as law enforcement here in the area for their response to this. And he described that witness who actually helped law enforcement eventually catch up with Ralph, the suspect. A witness actually taking a picture of his vehicle, seeing him run away from the scene here, and taking a picture of his vehicle and his vehicle's tag. So the president appreciative of that witness and his role in the law enforcement investigation. But I think it should be said here as well, with the Florida officials here actually wanting to say that Florida should have its own investigation in this. Basically, the governor, Ron DeSantis, he is citing that classified documents case where the former president is accused of having those documents after he left the presidency at his residence not far from here at Mar-a-Lago. That's the case that they say DOJ is still prosecuting against the president. It's been dismissed, but they filed an appeal, and they say they don't trust the U.S. Department of Justice or the FBI since they are still prosecuting that case to also be the same agencies, the federal agencies, that are going to be looking into this. And that's why they are now opening up that state investigation here in Florida. Jenna.
Spectrum's Jeff Allen, you have been on the ground there for us for the past couple days, bringing us all the latest information in West Palm Beach. Thanks again. And of course, we just want to fill you in on what we just watched, a press conference taking place in West Palm Beach, Florida. Governor Ron DeSantis, including a lot of members of law enforcement, mentioning they will be taking this investigation on the state level in addition to the federal investigation into the attempted assassination of former President Trump. We will keep you updated. Back to more news. With less than 50 days before the general election, both Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump are both back out campaigning this week. Spectrum's national reporter Angie Gonzalez has the latest from Washington.
Former President Donald Trump will make his first public appearance tonight, following an apparent assassination attempt at his Florida golf course Sunday.
The president is aware that he has highest levels of protection that the Secret Service is providing him.
Later